The Niners win 20-9. And honestly, it was a really huge game. The Niners moved to 8-4 this game. Carolina, with a win, would have taken first place in their division by a full game. This was an absolutely massive game. So, as important, of course, as it is to talk about the interceptions and stuff, I think a lot of people have lost focus on just how big this game was. For the Niners, Brock Purdy goes 193 yards, a touchdown, 3 interceptions. CMC goes for 24 carries, 89 yards. Had about $150 total with the receiving yards. He now leads the league in receptions. And on the Panthers side of it, Bryce Young goes for 170 yards, a touchdown, 2 picks, a rough game out of him. Rico Dowdle only gets 6 carries in this game. A whole mess here. And let's start with the Brock Purdy interceptions. So I'm just going to go through them one by one. So the first one was a deep in breaker to Juwan. If you look back on film, he threw that one late, he threw it late and he threw it inaccurately. A rough ball, frankly, not one that we're used to seeing Brock throw. It was just inaccurate. He missed him. He was just right behind him. I don't understand necessarily what went wrong there. If Juwan had a step on him, and granted it's J.C. Horn, so maybe I would love to see Brock be like, okay, it's J.C. Horn. Let's not try and fit in a tight window ball. But it's just behind Juwan and ends up being a pick. That one was not great. Second one, by far, in my opinion, his worst throw of the day. 3rd and 6. Absolutely massive play in the game. He steps up, tries to climb the pocket, and he absolutely has it. If he just takes off and runs, he has a first down. Not only that, if he wants to pull it down and check it down to George Kittle, he also has a first down. Probably more. I'd say George Kittle, with his ability after the catch, probably ends up with a touchdown himself. But instead, he goes deep to Ricky, who admittedly is open, who has about a step on his guy, and he just misses him. He sees it late, and he throws it behind him, really behind. And it turns what should be a pretty easy touchdown to Ricky if he can just lead it out in front right there. Bang. Love to see it. Instead, it's a rough throw. It's the one play, the 2 places it couldn't be was behind him and underthrown. That's exactly what it was. So it allows the Panthers DB to catch up and get an interception. And the third one, I'm just going to give a ton of credit to J.C. Horn. He was the backside corner on that play on the left side. He realizes that he has no assignment. He's basically a free man. And he charges all the way to the right side of the field, sees Ricky Pearsall starting to cross, and makes a phenomenal play. J.C. Horn is just that type of guy who's going to make a bunch of plays like that over the course of the season. And he had an amazing game before he went out with a concussion. So 2 brutal misfires by Brock, and 1 just not great play by J.C. Horn. Reason why I felt like I had to go through him step by step is because I came on here last week when the Niners beat the Cardinals and Brock came back and we put up 41 points. And I gave him a ton of love. I gave him his flowers. So it only feels right for me to address it when he plays poorly. Because I can't just, be like, oh, look at all the great stuff he does, and not actually address it when he messes up. Because, frankly, this was not his greatest game. I like him rebounding, though, with a nice rebound, like a really nice rip to Kittle in the open zone. Carolina gave him that spot, so that was a really nice read by him. But for the second half, you could tell either Shanahan was shaken by it, either Purdy was shaken because they did not try to go deep at all. Frankly, it was just a lot of simple checkdowns, just slowly move that ball down the field. And credit to Brock and that offense because they did end up getting one more touchdown and another field goal, which was all they would need to win this one. A very uncharacteristic game by Brock. Usually you don't see him, for one, make inaccurate throws. Whenever Brock has an interception, it's because he either read some zone defender wrong, because so much of what Brock does is big anticipation and big accuracy. That's what he has, because he doesn't have the strongest arm. He can't really rip it like a lot of the other quarterbacks in the league can. He doesn't have, of course, he's not Josh Allen, he's not Lamar Jackson, he's not Patrick Mahomes. So the way he makes up for it is with perfect accuracy and insane anticipation. And again, I'm just going to ignore that third interception because that was just an amazing play by J.C. Horn. I don't know what else there is to say. But for the first 2, not only was he late, but he was so inaccurate, which is just so uncharacteristic of Brock. So uncharacteristic, in fact, and this might get me a lot of hate, that I'm willing to just say, I'm willing to chalk it up to a bad game. So, and don't get me wrong, I understand. There's a lot of people that text me, that DM me whenever Brock has a bad game because I'm so ardent on this stance. If that was Brock just is misreading defenders, if there is something wrong clearly with the toe, like in the Jacksonville game where he had 2 interceptions in that one, You could tell he just wasn't stepping in and throwing the ball well. So the ball floated, and it was like, okay, yeah, very clearly something's wrong. He's injured and he needs to be out of the game. And yeah, he went on to miss 2.5 months. I'm willing to just say, like, it's a rough game out of Brock, clearly shaking off a little bit of rust. But these are all fixable issues. If he just issues that he has not had, like, it's something where it will be better over the course of the year. It's not time to put in Mac Jones or anything crazy like that. It's not, time to insanely overreact. If he has another bad game against Cleveland where he's just missing guys, then yeah, I think it'd be time to have a little bit of a conversation. But until he puts up consistently bad performances, I'm not willing to throw away 30 to 35 consistently good performances. And I know when Brock struggles, this is going to be a larger critique of the media. When Brock struggles, everyone is so quick to point out and be like, "Oh, look, I was right. He's a system guy, quarterback, yada yada yada." But they just ignore the consistently 10 to 15 great games he puts in a year. So, like for example, his MVP year where he was the front runner for MVP 16 weeks through the year. The offense is looking phenomenal all year, and then you played Baltimore on Christmas Day, and Brock gets crucified by the media in that game. And he didn't have a great game at all. He threw 4 interceptions. It was rough. But the amount of people that were jumping to be like, oh, look, I was right all along. I was right. He's a system quarterback. He's this. Is insane to me. And it's the same stuff that's happening again with this one, which is weird to me because the team still won. It's weird to see him just get absolutely crushed in the media for one bad performance. I don't know. We see it. So many other quarterbacks, frankly, have bad games, and we're willing to chalk it up to bad games because they are uncharacteristic of how they have played throughout the entire year. But we don't give that same grace to Brock Purdy. It's really frustrating to me. I think it's one of those things where if you're a late draft pick, you just have to prove yourself over and over and over and over again and be willing to get dunked on by the media. So that's exactly what he's going to do. Even though the Niners struggle in Cleveland after this rough performance against Carolina, I think he bounces back. Anyways, let's move off of Brock because I could talk about Brock and all that stuff all day. So CMC, absolute beast. He is on pace for 422 touches this season. For reference, Saquon had 450 throughout the course of the entire last season, including the postseason, with 4 playoff games, with the Rams and the Commanders games being games where he dominated and took 30 carries. So that pace is historic. It is by far unprecedented. He leads the league in receptions with 81 over Puka Nacua, JSN. Unbelievable stuff out of CMC. And, am I a little concerned about just how much they're using him? Yeah. But I think something that's important to know is he's not taking too many big hits. It feels like the way CMC is falling this year and getting hit is very different. It seems sustainable. So that you love to see. I would love to get some more Brian Robinson carries in there, just take some of the workload off, but I understand how important it is to have CMC in the game just for a schematic reason, trying to make life as hard for the defense as possible. So, but the reason overall why I'm so excited about this game and why, I'm so much more higher on the Niners after this game than I was heading in, because the things that I was really worried about with this Niners team, because I wasn't worried about Brock. I wasn't worried about CMC. I wasn't worried about any of that. My main things I was concerned about heading in was that offensive line's rough. And what do they do? They have an amazing game. Dominic Pooney, who struggled at the start of the year, is playing like his old self last year, just playing like a Pro Bowler again consistently for the last month. Colton McKivitz, who the team re-signed, has looked awesome, even though he does struggle against really, really good edge rushers, and we're going to see that in Myles Garrett next week. We seem to have figured out that left guard spot with Burford and Barch rotating, and of course Trent Williams is one of the best tackles of all time, and he continues to just be that. At 37, he's still so good. Most plays you cannot tell he is 37, which is unbelievable. He has been awesome. Awesome. And of course, Ricky Pearsall, not the greatest game out of him. If I was a betting man, which I'm not anymore, I've given that up. But if I was, I would have said bet on Ricky this game, and that would have been horrendously wrong. Just because, frankly, we didn't rip the ball in the second half very deep at all. And I think it's inevitable he'll pop back up. But for any Niners fans concerned about Ricky, I think it's inevitable. Just give it time. So, moving on to the Niners defense. Number 27, Jair Brown. Have yourself a freaking day. His best game as a Niner by far. 2 interceptions, 5 tackles, and even if you were to throw away the interceptions, I would say the best game of his career. because he was in the right spot at the right time. He was doing everything correct. Again, the things that I were the most worried about for the Niners team heading into this game played awesome, which was insanely surprising to me. Like the interior offensive line playing a great game against Derek Brown and Ashawn Robinson, not what I got on my bingo card. And then Jair Brown, in my opinion, someone who should have been benched up 2 months ago, putting up an insane game and looking like finally the guy that we drafted, was unbelievable. He was so good. Again, in the right place at the right time, always. And of those 2 interceptions, that first one was so clutch. Completely baited Bryce. Had him thinking he was going one way. Then he started pedaling back. Oh my God, that's a beautiful thing to see. And that second interception, he just drove on it, a Territory McMillan inbreaker. That was awesome as well. And when the Niners defense can get good safety play, it's like you forget about all the injuries that the team has suffered because bad safety plays was hampering this team. It was brutal. But just getting medium to even good safety play, which was what we got this last game, and all of a sudden it's like, here comes the Niners defense. Even with all the injuries, you allowed 9 points. Even when they have 3 takeaways, unbelievable. Unfreaking believable. The pass rush is still a hot mess, I'm not going to lie. And that's just frankly not going to get much better throughout the whole year. But the coverage on the back end was holding up, which was allowing some pressure, which was great. And the big thing is they didn't get run on all game, which we're going to talk about that when we get to Carolina. They were able to hold up against the run game. But overall, this game was such a huge win for the team. And I think, like I mentioned before, it has gotten clouded by the Purdy discourse. If you are a Niners fan and you're coming out of the game and the main thing you're thinking about is, oh, Brock, I'm worried about Brock. I think that's a natural reaction. I just want you to refocus and be like, okay, the biggest problems with this team, we were concerned about the interior offensive line. They had a hell of a test, and they freaking won it. And that defense, with how bad certain players have been playing on that defense and how much of a liability has looked. In fact, the Cardinals got the record for the most completions in a single game against this defense, and the Rams won 42. But that was not the same defense that came out in those last 2 weeks as the one we saw. They were amazing. It was so freaking nice to see. And overall, no one wants to see the San Francisco team come to the postseason. You don't want to play San Francisco right now. The way you have amazing coaching, you have blue chip players, that can lead to success come the postseason. Moving on to the Carolina side of it. Yeah, I just have, Jesus, this team sucks. Their record was really good heading in. They were over 500. Like I said, they were, with a win, they would have been a full game up in their division. It was a prime opportunity for them, especially coming off the Atlanta game, where Bryce Young and that offense put up 450 yards passing. And what do? They fall apart. Because they have talent on that roster. But it's just, I said that I have written here, it's annoying that they suck because they definitely have an option not to, yet they seem to choose the option that does. Bryce, a hot mess yesterday. He was under a bit of pressure. Like I said, a lot of receivers were just covered. It was good defense on the back end. But he clearly had a rough game, that not choosing to bail and try and run for the end zone on that first interception and instead trying to fit it into and not seeing Jair Brown. Oh, this is such a mess there. And he had 500 yards last week. There's the amount of memes I've seen of like, look, Bryce, they're in red. They're the Falcons. Just beat them. But I don't know. This guy is just, against the Falcons, he's gone. Against everyone else, it's a mess. There was such a good chance here for positive momentum. If the Panthers had been 7-5, beat the Falcons, get momentum there, get some defensive momentum and a win for the Niners, I feel like we'd be in such a different spot. But right now, everyone's just like, oh, whatever. They're a cute team. It's Carolina. Whatever. They're going to eventually fall apart. And they did, which was rough. The biggest mistake I felt like they made was just not running the ball. They were in a situation where the first half, they could have control over the game, right? Because the other team gave you the ball 3 straight times, and yet it felt like the Niners had the ball the entire game, which felt so weird. If they could just run the ball, the Niners defense has allowed the run to work really well. I want to say they've had like the 28th rushing defense in the league, so you can run the ball on the Niners. But for Rico Dowdle to get 6 carries, for Chuba to get 3, I just don't understand what the game plan was. They felt like so insistent on Bryce throwing the ball, and there was just no reason for him to. It was a really, really rough game plan. I want to say it was one of Canales' worst as the Panthers head coach, which is saying something because this team has suffered some insanely brutal losses. But just the frustration of this game because the Panthers had every opportunity here, and for them to seize literally none of them was brutal. 3 points off of 3 takeaways is an easy way to just piss the hell out of your fan base. That's a mess. Like I said, their defense has talent, and they played a good game. J.C. Horn's an amazing corner. My God, J.C. Horn is so good. I knew he was good heading into the game. I did not realize just how much of a freaking instinct that guy had for the ball. Derrick Brown's so good. They have A'Shawn Robinson, who I really love. He, like 4 years ago when he was with the Rams, he shut down the Niners' run game pretty much single-handedly. They have good secondary players. Like, there is talent on this freaking team. Hopefully they can get their stuff together, because if you look at the rest of their schedule, our game might have been the easiest they have for a little while. I'm going to pull it up here. Like, the Panthers' schedule, there's a reason why everyone or no one thinks they're actually going to make the playoffs, besides the fact, of course, that they looked really rough against us, because they have the Rams now without Trayvon Moorick because he punched Jawan Jennings in the dick. We're going to talk about that in a sec. We have the Saints, Bucks, Seahawks, Bucks. You got one game off against the Saints, and other than that, you're going to be fighting to the death. The good news for them is that they do have those 2 games against the Buccaneers, so if they can somehow pull off a win against either the Rams or the Seahawks, handle business against the Saints, which they've already lost to once, if they can just beat the Bucks twice, they could be in a spot to actually win the division, which is crazy. Anyways, last thing I want to talk about when it comes to this game, Jawan Jennings and Trayvon Moore got into a really, really weird incident. So it was the last play of the game, and Trayvon Moore, for some reason, I know Jawan Jennings has been pissing them off the whole game because Jawan had a very, very good game, which when Jawan has a good game, that means he's blocking insanely well. He's just making defenders look small, which, pisses them off like crazy. So at the end of the game, Trayvon Moore just takes a cheap shot right to Jawan's nuts. I saw Rich Eisens call it Jawan's Jennings. And I was like, what on earth? They showed the replay in Levi's. All of the fans, like the freaking half of them that were even left because the game was over, they're just like, oh my God, are you kidding? It was unbelievable to see. And then, of course, right as the game ends, Jawan immediately goes up to him and throws an open-handed punch on him. It was such a mess. We know the results of it now. Jawan Jennings did not get any suspension. I'm not sure if he even got fined because he got punched in the freaking nuts. And Trayvon Moore got suspended. In my opinion, one of the better safeties in the entire league. He is such a talented player. And he completely botched it because he's now going to be out for that Rams game, which is brutal for them. If you want to talk about the game, they are like a little chance in, it almost goes to no chance.